Went off to school at Hofstra and then UMass, and moved out to California, played club ball for years, moved here in '96. I had the good benefit of, when I had my first and now only son, joining Gadway Lacrosse early on and being part of a very big program. And kudos to Lou for his efforts on getting lacrosse off the ground here in Atlanta. I lived in town and wanted a different experience for going forward and thought that teaching was really important, and the program we were in was just really big. It had grown really fast. It was really the only game in town for that. So I started Northside Youth Lacrosse with Northside Church, and then ended up going, kind of doing my own thing after about a year and a half, 2 years of that, seasons-wise. And so we've been doing it for, we're in year 10 or 11. We've got about 350 kids per season, K through 8 in the fall, and K through 7 in the spring. And we really do a really good job, I think, of teaching. As I listened to Jason's presentation, I realized we could do a better job of teaching, because a lot of the challenges that he talks about, we deal with in different ways at different ages. The presentation today is really designed around, flow for youth lacrosse. You can do what we're about to show and teach at any level, and I have. I had the pleasure of coaching Ricky Lewis in high school for 2 years at St. Pius. And of course, great players make any coach look better, and so that was a good experience. But the concepts that I'm going to show today are just that, they're concepts, and we can do anything from these sets that we're talking about. I'm going to really focus on kind of areas first. So when we talk about setting up for the season, when we get into finally teaching, or a moment of teaching, I'm going to speak from my perspective. I like to teach areas of the field, or spots in the field, right? So I'm really focused on doing this because I feel like when you're teaching a kid, if you can get across the point of the area that they're starting to, once you've gone through the flow of the ball's come down, it's moved behind, maybe we're changing middies, maybe we didn't. A lot of times at that young age, they all cram inside the box, right? They're all inside the restraining box area, like, I'm open. And they're not open, but the quarter tackle all hind's going like, Jesus Christ, what am I doing, right? So I try to get these guys to recognize spots on the field. And I don't care what offense you choose to run. You can run an open set, you can run a 1-4-1, you can run a 2. It doesn't matter what you're running. We found that giving them the area and helping them understand helps us run an offense from these spots, right? So from back right-hand side, we call it A. I tried nomenclature with letters of X, but because everything goes through X, it was easier just to refer X as X. Similarly, the crease is the crease, and that doesn't change, right? I think that helped the kids understand. Then as I moved around, the back side was B and C, etc., D, E, and F, respectively, with G on the far side. So as I get the kids into understanding their spots, I literally have them, I walk them through it, and then I'll have them go stand at that spot. Even at our U9, at the bantam level, right, we'll put up, and this was a good idea by one of our coaches, we did little signs this big that stood on their own, and we'd put them on the field, and we'd say, run to this area, right? And so if we did it in a diamond shape, E, G, C, and X, respectively, right, they at least knew where to go, and we worked from that area, so whatever plays we ran, which was generally, we're throwing the ball here and moving across and cutting through, etc., we could get them to understand the concepts. Once they understood where to go, it made it easier for the ball to flow, right? And the concepts were simple. And I'm going to talk through what I'm doing today is really talking from a 2-3-1, but again, you can do this from any area, right? And so when I talk certain nomenclature, as Jason had alluded to, I like to repeat things, right? So we have initiators and we have reactors. Initiators are guys who can go to the goal. At youth lacrosse, particularly at U11, U13 in particular, if you've got a team of 20 and they're not a select team, you're going to have 3 or 4 kids total maybe who are really initiators, kids who can beat somebody off the dodge. And everybody else is a reactor. So if you can get them to understand where they're supposed to be in space and to react to the dodger and what the defense then gives them, it's huge, right? Because it starts to come together for them. Some kids more than others, some kids faster than others, but it starts to come together. So I really like to teach areas of the field, and then I really like to teach what I'm looking for from those areas, right? So Again, I'm from Baltimore, so it's a 2-3-1 from the top down, not from the backside up. And in this particular case, I put my middies in this configuration. And I usually, depending on what I have, if I'm fortunate to have one lefty on the team, at least that kid usually starts at the left side attack. I find that to be helpful. But at the same time, maybe I don't, and maybe my midi becomes, permanently on the right wing. You can move this around any way you want, but the spots are still the spots. So if I tell somebody, we're going to move it a certain way, this is what I want to do. The other thing I try to teach here is I want to get the ball around, right? And I find from a youth offense standpoint that either the open set or the 2-3-1, at least having somebody at X is really helpful, right? Because there's always a backup, there's always a release. The defense has to turn their head if the ball's moving around. The kids have to move through in 2X, which is very helpful from a spacing standpoint. I talked about north-south and east-west. So in any motion offense, and this is, I'm going to break it down really simple, but in any motion offense, you can teach it as you wish, but when it goes north-south, when I'm throwing the ball from the top to the bottom, I like to rotate my triangle, which we'll get into, right? If I'm going from north-south from the bottom up, I like to rotate my triangle. This forces the defense to move their feet, and if not, someone's going to be wide open, right? So I like to teach the movement, and I like to get the kids to understand where they are moving within space. So I normally teach the spots, and then I break it down for the middies, and then I break it down for the attacker. So from that perspective, I also like to use the terms one in, one out, one over. One in, one out, one over. Jason talked about using repeatable terms. I like to do the same thing, right? So in this case, my Dodger is shown in red here. He's going down the alley, not at this angle, mind you, but he's going down the alley towards the cage. He's going in. My next guy is moving out, right? So I have him mirror and fade, right? So he mirrors the... Let me get my laser pointer. Best use of a stick, right? Thank God it's not a long pole. So I mirror this way, and then I end up popping out. So his movement is to mirror this guy, because a lot of slides are coming from the crease. If he's hanging and slowly curling, then he's going to be able to catch that pass with a fantastic shot, right? So one in, one's popping out, and of course, I've got my fill, right? One over. So this midi is just filling this area, right? So my triangle is still intact. If I don't have what I want, if I don't get my shot, I'm going to move the ball. And eventually, this guy's going to end up on the crease if I didn't get what I wanted. So I use one in, one out, one over. And I keep repeating that to the middies, particularly in this drill, because Jason also mentioned they're not going to remember it tomorrow, or at least they'll remember some of it. But by the end of the next week, or the third week of the practice before the season, it starts to sink in a little bit, right? And it's difficult to run, but I like to run my drills in triangles for passing and catching as well, and I'll reinforce the movement in the first few practices as part of my station work, because it makes the kids move to the areas. Once they get the idea of moving to the area, then I can start teaching the nuance of you don't just blindly cut, right? You don't just blindly fade. You're always facing the ball carrier and fading, as an example. So I teach the nuance as we go, and I have my coaches try to teach the nuance as you go. They're only going to retain so much. So if you can get them just get one in, one out, one over, from the midfield perspective, that's a big accomplishment. So I teach north-south, and again, if I were going to dodge, I'd move the ball around. And let's say that I know my stronger dodger is in the D spot. So I'm going to say, let's go dog, or go delta, or whatever. I'm telling, I don't have to call out Bobby's name, right, or Jimmy's name, or whatever. They have Bobby's and Jimmy's anymore, so I'm like, Hofstra, whatever. So basically, as the ball moves around, I always want to get my guy to come up and show. So teaching, the other thing is, at youth lacrosse, you got the restraining line, when you're showing them in practice, they all want to stand there. I'm open, right? The ball's coming this way, and I'm open, right? And any defender can step out, and it's a fast break the other way. So we teach, or try to, the V-cutting concept of, if I know the ball's moving that way, and I've been called, and the team knows that I'm running a dog, which means this guy's going to be my dodger, as the ball moves around, I want to move him up into the middle. He's catching the ball here, so he's not flat, and then he's squaring his shoulders, of course, and taking this side of the cage, right? He's got that whole side of the field to go towards the goal. If they slide from the crease, I'm mirroring and passing. If not, I'm moving it through. So my first part of the speech is expectations. Jason talked about an A, B, and C group, right? When you finally put them all together, for me, some of the challenge here is, in any motion offense, any triangle offense, and offenses in general, you always want two places to be able to throw the ball. I want to be able to throw the ball forward, or I want to be able to throw it to the guy who filled my spot. Well, in 4th and 5th grade, guess how many times they roll back or throw the pull pass to the guy behind them? That would be about never, right? So what I try to teach at the youngest age, what I'm going to reinforce more even in Surge this year, is let's just get the right guy to the right spot, right? So let's at least get a release pass every time if I don't have the dodge I want or the feed I want to the crease, right? So that's part of what we're trying to teach. So as I go in, let's talk about the attack now. So one in, one out and up, and one over, right? And I slow fill my midfielder, which will appear here in a minute, last. But I'm teaching this guy, as soon as this dodge starts, I want you to read your defenseman. Most of the time the defenseman will do this and step upfield slightly, and I'm going to back cut him across, and I'm just, in this example, to keep it simple for the young guys, I'm going to cut him all the way across. I'm going to cut to where, all the way to over the G spot, if you will, or my favorite spot. So as I cut that way, right, I'm showing my stick. A lot of times if I don't have a lefty who's showing it this way, the righty can come across and curl, right, and show for the stick. So I like to cut this guy through, right? He's cutting through, he's part of that triangle. I'm cutting the next guy to the empty spot, and he's filling, right? So everybody's moving, right? He's getting out of the way, so I've still got that side of the field open. I might have the dump pass underneath. Tough pass for a kid to make at 4th and 5th grade, but a lot of times if the defenseman steps upfield, it's very there for them, right? So stepping up and under and showing for the ball. I fill the back side. He's really, under my PowerPoint, I was limited on my abilities, but he's kind of showing me this area here so that I can make that easy pass and he can turn and throw it to the guy at X, right? So I'm just trying to get the concept of, first thing is you're an initiator, you're a dodger, your first look is you to the goal. If they slide, I have two looks. I've got this guy cutting, and I've got this guy popping slightly, mirroring me. So just to get them to recognize that, super hard for the 4th and 5th and 6th and 7th grader, in my opinion, to do anything other than, to get their head up, right? So all they see a lot of times is the next dodge, right? It's like, I have the ball, I'm the initiator, I must go, right? Yeah, at some point, they're going to have to get their head up, right? So we get, in our drills, we try to get the ball. I'm making my quick dodge, and my first drill maybe I'm passing to the triangle who's coming up, who's moving over. And I just run that. I just run that for a few minutes so they get the feel of one in, one out, one over. What am I looking for? And here's my pass. One time I'm just shooting. One time the next iteration I'll have the pass to the crease guy. I'll have him fill up. I'll have him make the pass to the guy who just moved over, etc. So I try to reinforce what we're doing with the same movements in the practice drill. So if you can incorporate those two things, by week 3, week 4, you're kind of getting into your offensive flow. These aren't plays, right? Conceptually, I always laugh when I'd call something on the sideline, even in a select game in the summertime, really just calling for the initiator to begin his dodge. The rest is all working within space and understanding how to play the game, right? So I'd always laugh, and the opposing coach was like, it's an individual move. He's going to the goal, right? Yes, someone has to go to the goal. Nothing happens in lacrosse until somebody beats somebody, or at least creates movement, right? So in this particular case, again, I'm trying to just create the movement. I'm getting my attackman through, and I'm cutting over. And this is very pedantic. I get it, right? This is very structured. I'm going. I don't have a shot. I'm looking for that pass. If it's not there, I'm hitting the guy at X. I'm just getting 7, 8 yards deep of GLE, and I'm hitting the guy at X. And his job is to then take the ball and go the other way and move the ball around the circle, right? Just keep it moving. So, I'm either going to get my shot, I'm going to get my pass or dump pass, or I'm not. And if it's not, it's okay. And this is one of the hardest things to teach the kids too, is they keep expecting, well, we didn't score. It's like, you know what? You're not going to score all the time, right? We got to shoot to score, right? We pass to win, we shoot to score. My favorite Ted Garberism, right? Right? We pass to win, we shoot to score. And that's huge, because if you can't pass, you can't win the game, right? So there's the movement basically for the attack. So what do I do from the attack side, right? So the ball went out of bounds, and I'm going to say it's time for that guy to go, or we just know that if little Johnny gets the ball, behind, out of bounds, we're just going to go. Now, little Johnny at 5th and 6th grade tends to be severely right-handed, right? He might be lefty, but we're going to pretend in this case he's a righty. So he's going to drive to his right, and as he drives towards the cage, not at that angle, but I couldn't do it better with the PowerPoint because I gave two curly lines. Right? I'm going to cut through. Again, I'm cutting through, and in this case, I'm just cutting through all the way to the triangle. Right? And then this guy's going to move to the backside. I'm just trying to keep it consistent for the guys to understand. Yes, sir?
At the really young age, or the fourth and fifth grade, do you really try to separate these two groups? Like the A's are working off of each other and the M's are working off of each other, or do you try to integrate it, or even at that early age?
No, I try to keep it as simple as I can, and at that age, my attack's doing this, and my middies are doing this, but here I'm putting it together because the next look, right, as an attackman is, I'm looking for the feed, right? So as I drive, I want to keep their head up. It's you first, right? If you got your guy beat, you're keeping your head up, but somebody's going to slide, so where's the slide coming from? So we teach a couple things. The first thing we teach is I'm going to cut ball side through towards the crease with my stick up, right by my head, right? Because, again, I'm looking for that pass, the easy goal, right? And at the same time, if I drag my defensive through, and this guy started his cut early, what's open? This entire half of the field, right? So I give my man time to get high side, take a look at the goal, take a look at what the feed is. If I don't have anything, what's he going to do? He's going to pass the ball to the guy who filled. So in this particular case, again, sorry, but this should have been like slightly mirroring that guy and then popping out. And this is a tough one too to teach the middies. This is where you are talking to both, right? Just because I'm in the midi triangle doesn't mean I can, no, I'm facing the guy at X and he's going to the goal. Let me just go fill my spot, right? He can't see the slide. So we teach, you know, the fade and look, fade and look. You can slowly fade to the spot because you're going to be the last guy to get the ball. Right? The ball went to the right. He cut in. He's going to come over in the next little click on my mouse here, and he's the low fade. So it's going to happen slowly. But again, I'm just trying to teach the concept of two very distinct triangles with very distinct movement and all the nuances that you're going to be repeating. Let's do it off a north-south dodge. Let's rotate off the north-south dodge, right? Let's east-west. We're not dodging off of east-west passes. East-west being this way. Show for the ball. If I'm going east-west and I know I'm the next guy to get the ball, whether I'm dodging or not, show for the ball. If we're moving in reverse, show for the ball. It is one of the single hardest things to do at 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th, in my opinion, especially with rec players, hell, even high school and select. But many times just getting to show for the ball and move out of the area. Just because you start in that area doesn't mean you're in a 5-yard box of that area, right? So you teach the spot or area, but you're teaching all the other basics that you want in your drills and in general. So V cut to the ball, right? Step in, step out, show for the ball. Square your shoulders, take your dodge, drive down the alley, right? You first, if not, where are my two looks? My two looks are the crease or adjacent. Right? If they're not open and they're cutting through, I'm hitting X. And if you could, you know, again, you have to keep repeating this. We did last year a little offensive playbook that used these diagrams and had notes to try and teach the kid to like read this, right? Like, and my other favorite saying is, you know, you learn at practice, you get better on your own. That's true of your stick work and your mental work, right? All the way up. So you learn at practice, you get better on your own. You usually have maybe in the fall we have one practice in a game. In the spring it's 2 practices in a game. You cannot get better just coming to those 2 practices. You're never going to be the player you want to be that way, right? It's not going to happen. So we reiterate that, and you can tell the kids that are hitting the wall or have a friend or father, dad, and I tell the baseball dads who never played, I'm like, hey, you have a baseball glove? He's like, well, of course. I'm like, oh, great. Get out there with a baseball glove, catch and throw with your son, right? Keep it basic, keep it simple. So,
quick question.
Yes, sir.
Do you ever teach the pick and slip, or you just keep it easy?
You're ahead of the presentation, sir.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to get to that, but for right now, I'm just trying to show areas of movement. There are so many variations you can do off of any offense, and I have pick and slip kind of coming up, but last but not least, yes, sir.
Can you give an example of your initiating the dodge from like D, let's say?
Right.
And using your lettering system.
Yep.
How do you make that, what do you say? What do you say to that player so he knows, I'm moving to C or I'm moving to Z?
So generally, they'll get to a spot, right? And I'll show you a variation here that we could do. But generally, they'll get to a spot on the field, the kid will come in, will come down, whatever, and I see right away, one of my 2 initiators is in one of 2 spots, right? I'll tell who's on the crease, and let's say Bobby ends up here, right, in the D spot. I'll say, let's run a dog next time through. Run a dog, right? Run a dog, and I'll repeat it. And everybody's like, oh, D, I'm in the D spot, right? And who's there? Well, my initiator's there. So I, as a coach, have to anticipate just a little bit, right? So it's just an opportunity to get it there. Some people think that's too much joystick coaching. I say at 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grade, and frankly, all the way through. And a lot of times the kids don't recognize what they have until they've learned to play. In high school, they're starting to learn to play. You can run a set. You can make the occasional call, but you don't have to, everything doesn't have to be a play. It's just, it's a start. To me, it's a start. So I'll anticipate who he is. Maybe my best dodger's over here. So my big wrinkle, right, is run a Frank 100, right? 100, 300, 500, any call like that it's a sweep. So I'll cut this guy through. I'll fill here and I'll sweep, right? So I keep it really simple with, like, again, at youth, there's like 2 or 3 things that we look to do before I get to picks and slips and all sorts of other things that frankly are great to do, but really hard for a kid to learn in the rec level, right, as you're going through a season in week 3 or 4. It's not that I don't want to teach it, it's like, let's get the concepts of movement and area first, and then I can teach additional nuances as the season goes. Does that make sense? Yeah, cool. So, last but not least from this set, if you want to run from a wing, and again, I'm cheating because I jumped ahead of where I wanted to be, but if I want to run it from a wing, the first thing I'll do is, immediately as he starts his move, I am again clearing ball side through. So it's going to be a slow pop and fade here, and a slow fill here. This is advanced in the sense that again, he could go one way only. He could say, I'm just a righty high side dodger, and he's going to have that half the field to work with, and I slow fill here for his release on a pass. Right? So that's option A. I'm showing here that X is switching. In the full triangle movement, he'd be cutting, and he could be cutting to the ball, but he's also kind of cutting into where the crease guy might be, and they end up with a lot of confusion. So I like to teach the exchange. So when I'm running from a wing, I'm just exchanging. Right? I'm exchanging those back to attachment to keep movement going. He still has a release if he needs to throw it behind, but I'm bringing the guy at X hard up to this corner because he might be open, and I'm slow filling the backside guy so he's got a release point to throw the ball to. And I'm cutting through on my triangle, same movement. 1 in, 1 out slowly, 1 over. Right? I'm opening up, I'm always looking to open up half of the field. Right? However I do that. Yes, sir.
When you've got a kid on the wing with the ball,
Yep.
and you've got the 2 separate triangles, and we're talking younger kids here,
Yep.
basics. How do you tell them just look at the ball, look at your teammate, think about your triangle? How do you get that concept in a 4th grader's head? And that's
From where to
looking at the kid, most kids are eyeballing the ball the whole time. They're
Yeah.
tracking the ball.
You say when you got 2 triangles going at once, how do you explain that?
Well, again, that's why I break down the triangle movement in the first couple practices, and I overemphasize. I've got 2 triangles going, right? Within my midi, I'm always doing this. If the ball's going from dodging, my ball side midi is always cutting to and through the crease looking for the ball. My crease guy is always slow fading away, mirroring the dodger. And my backside guy is the last guy, and he's always slow filling, so he's got someone to throw the ball to. So I
meant more the vision though. How do you teach a young kid to? You just have them say, look at your points of your triangle at all time, or are they supposed to be scanning their triangle? Or I'm just trying to teach them how to get that vision, field vision.
Well, do you use the word triangle in practice? I find...
I know. I don't.
So you're staying with the 1 in, out, 1 out, 1 over.
1 in, 1 out, 1 over. I go back to the first nomenclature. Yes, they're moving within a triangle, and I'll reinforce when I first draw it on a board or walk them through. I'm like, what shape is that? Oh, is that a circle? Is that a square? No, it's a triangle. So we're going to be moving in 2 triangles the rest of the year. In fact, the rest of your life probably, right, as it relates to lacrosse. So whether you're in whatever offense, you're probably in some triangle formation or moving within a triangle. So I try to get the concept of that, but I never say, where's your triangle, spacing, right? It's where are you on the field? Where's your area? Get to the spot. right? If I've got a guy hanging up here in the E area, and I've got 2 Dodgers already in the right spot, I'll yell to Joey, get to the crease, right? So I'll tell this guy he's in the way, right? Get to the crease. Because the biggest problem at 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th, in addition to just finding the area, and again, we're breaking this down to, look, 70% of the goals at that age are going to be scored in transition or broken situations. But for the 30 or 40%, let's at least try to learn what we're doing within the space, right? So the biggest thing is get freaked out of the way of the Dodger, right? A lot of times, the biggest problem for this age, and frankly, again, in high school all the way up, you don't see it as much as college. There's kids in the way of the Dodgers, so the slide is too fast or easy. So I really want to get the idea of get through, right? You're like never wrong for cutting through. Like I use the word never. You're never wrong for cutting through. Because in the end, if they just replace each other, right? If that movement replaces each other, what it creates is an open area for the Dodger, right? Give me an open chance to go to the goal. If my initiator's got it, he's going to take it. If he doesn't, what's he going to do? He's got to move the ball where? He's going to move the ball through X. At the next age group or a select group, he can move the ball through X, or he can roll out or pull pass to his partner who just filled the space he came from. Right? So those are the 2 things we're trying to teach. In this, and you can run it from Charlie, you can run it from Gator, whatever. The idea is, you can keep it as simple as your kids are. If I run it from here, my triangle is moving, I'm slow fading and looking for the ball because if they're coming from the crease, who's open? Right? The most dangerous guy in the field is the crease guy. So we teach that, reinforce it as much as you can. And you're going to say, as Jason pointed out, the same thing about 1 million times. And maybe by like the 8th or 10th practice of doing it, within whatever you're doing within your offense, they're going to start to get it. And some kids more than others, obviously, right? So your A players, right, they get it a little faster. But we do ranking 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we do a draft so we keep the teams even. I like Jason's idea of, don't teach the lowest common denominator, teach up, which is great, and allowing the A kids to do that. But eventually, everybody's got to understand at least where to be, right? So that when that pass that has to be made is made, somebody's in the right spot to catch it. That's the biggest point here. It's like, what are my options? Right, ball's moving east-west, I'm not dodging, my triangle's not moving. My ball's moving north-south, or every time I throw it down, I'm going to fill the crease, my other guy's going to pop up. It's just that simple. I'm going to move my triangle every time I go north-south. Right? Yes, sir?
Is there a reason or purpose why dodging from the wing, you're just doing an exchange opposite rather than keeping the integrity of the triangle, the attack triangle?
There isn't. I forgot to put in one more slide, which would have had keeping the integrity of the triangle. However, to your point, one reason I don't like to cut into the ball carrier is because I might be dragging my defenseman into the play where my crease guy is popping out. So I'm putting so much crowded area right here that it makes it harder for this guy to see a pass. That's all.
Forgive me, I'm talking about the attack triangle, it would rotate opposite as you vacate? From that place?
If I rotate it opposite the dodge, right, if he's dodging low angle, that guy should be popping away and this guy should be pulling through. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm sorry, on this existing wing dodge.
Yep.
As you drive that attackman, as that attackman drives, the attack triangle rotating opposites.
Yeah.
In other words, in this case, would be counterclockwise.
Right. So.
As opposed to the attackman exchanging.
Right. So if I filled here, which I could do, right? Is that what you're talking about? Taking A from X and moving them this way.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Right. You can do that and you can teach that. I'm just giving you an option here off of what normally would be done.
Got it. Is
And
that
my
your base?
Pardon me?
Is that your base?
My base is this, even
Okay.
at that age. And the reason I like this versus the other way is the chance of that guy rolling back and hitting the guy filling at this level is not as often as him finding the backside feed that's in front of his face. So as he's dodging this way, he sees the guy filling, and if his guy, who's usually camped out on the crease, right, because he does not play him behind, if he starts to drift or show or whatever, I can hit a guy often wide open backside, which is easy for my high side dodger to look and see versus the likelihood of my 5th grader rolling back, hitting X, and then spinning the ball.
Yeah.
At the next level, all day long, right?
Right.
But at this level, not so much. So it's really more of a personal preference, but to your point, and it's a good one, I would have had one more slide, it would have been like, okay, keep my triangles the same. And you can keep it that simple, but I just find this to be a little more effective.
So then your red A would go back out to where he is on the wing.
Yeah, he would fill,
Okay.
right? So he would probably do that and then just go back to where he was. Yep. You could again, depending on what you did, and if he ever came all the way across, what would that guy do? The guy who went all the way back, what would he do? He would bounce, right? He would just bounce and fill. How am I doing on time?
We're at,
10:44.
Is that good or
You
bad?
got 15 minutes extra, so you got till 11:15.
Right. So, we talked, the question came about, what about picks and slips? One variation, depending on, again, what you want to teach your kids. So I just showed you the most basic rudimentary thing that you could do from a set, using the letters. Letters never change. Your offense can change to whatever you want it to be, right? But in this example, if I want to change it up, I can say, every time my dodge happens from up top, I'm going to pop the crease guy opposite. I'm just going to pop up, right, as the ball moves from him to him, he effectively move out with the ball, right? He's not going to stand on that wing and catch it. He's going to move up. The ball comes to him. As soon as the ball is being thrown, he is moving up and under his, this guy's defenseman, setting a pick, right? And the reason I'm doing that is I'm dragging the crease guy out. So again, if we kept our triangle movement of cutting through, which you'll see in a moment, I'm opening up the whole side of the field for the dodger, number one. But I also might get this beautiful little dump pass off of this pick, right? So my guy shows the ball, and he comes off. He catches it right-handed through the middle of the field with nobody in front of him, right? Because he's popping, he's dragging his guy out with him. His guy's probably not going to hang there, right? And at least at the youth age, they're taught, like, go where your guy goes, stay between him and the ball. So he's at least going to vacate a little bit of the crease, even if he comes this high. I've got the whole side to catch and go and curl, right? So while that's happening, again, he can go backside on him. He can, you teach, once you start teaching pick movement and pick slipping and pick, I've got to read what to do. If my guy overplays the pick, I'll come underneath, right? If my guy overplays the pick, I'll come over top. What I'm trying to do is get my right-handed guy with a head of steam, catching the ball, moving towards the goal north-south. So again, this is really basic. He can take a quick look as he drifts this way with the ball. Remember, he catches it up here and he starts to go. If he drifts and sees it, these guys are just basically exchanging. So he continues on. He becomes the crease guy as this guy's dodging. And my popper, my guy who set the pick, he's just going to turn and roll. I still have my triangle, still intact. My attack is still doing the same thing. I got a guy cutting through. I got a guy filling. I got another guy filling, right? Nothing changed. My attack still moved. So, again, I'm just reinforcing there's a gazillion options off of any offense. I'm trying to keep it simple as what you might do at the youth level, both from a spacing standpoint and a look. My first look was I'm moving my two triangles. I have a couple basic rules. This is what I do. So in this next diagram, I'm going to ramp it up for anybody coaching high school here. A couple, all right, and select ball and all that stuff. So the beauty of a 2-3-1 offense at the next level is, and really it's at any level, but all the adage is dodge, pass again, and redodge. And the reason is, if you can get the defense to get on the wheel and rotate and move, you're going to open up the other side of the field opposite where the ball started on the dodge. So that's what this next series of slides is kind of doing, and I'm going to be wrapping up with that. So again, if I call a delta dodge, and everybody knows that delta's my dodger, so little Joey's going to be the guy catching the ball up top here, squaring his shoulders and going, right? I'm mirroring on the crease, so I pop opposite the dodger, and I'm always curling and looking towards the ball, and then I'm going to slow fade him out. And of course, I'm bringing the other guy over. So while that's happening, of course, my attack's moving, but here's the nuance, right? This is the huge differentiator from just ending up in the triangle of going to that spot and rotating. As the gentleman pointed out, why don't I do that? Well, I gave you a nuance off of why I didn't do it for the attack here. Here's the biggest change and the hardest thing for these kids to get. This attackman is going to cut through as he normally does, looking for the ball, but he's only going to go so far as the backside pipe, right? So getting the kid to cut across and stop somewhere around the backside pipe and turn and keeping his eyes on the dodger, that's critically important. But as the ball moves, I want him to float back to where he came from. And this is really hard to get across to the youngest players, which is why this part of the presentation is, if you're in middle school or have a high school, this is the nuance of the next level, right? Because the expectation is he can either throw there or roll back and hit his man here. But as that guy floats, right, and that dot and that exchange happens, notice now I'm about, and this is where it would have been really as I catch the ball in any offense, I'm about 6-7 yards south of GLE, heading to that side of the field. So my X guy is showing to one side of the field in the ball so he can catch the ball from the ball carrier, and I want him as quickly as he can to make that pass to the backside attackman, which is shown in A, right? So he filled to A. And the idea is dodge, if I don't have my shot, pass, pass again, and then attack the backside, right? So if I've got my strong dodger here and I know it, I might call a delta dodge, knowing that if I don't get what I want, the next guy to dodge is going to be my strongest dodger coming from the backside. The defense slid, they're all slid over. There's effectively two guys on one side of the field. The guy catching the ball off the second pass at A, and this top side mini who filled. Right? It's a lot easier to attack a side of the field with two guys on it than four guys on it. This is the principle. Right? I didn't make it up, I'm just teaching with what I learned. So that's effectively the look, right? Is I'm moving that way. And if it were the other way, the rules stay the same. If I'm attacking from X, it's the same. But the nuance here, right, I'll teach two nuances real fast. So the nuance here is I'm cutting through as I normally do. I'm stopping back pipe. But as the ball gets to that second pass, I'm backfilling to where I came from. So I still have a kind of a tweaked triangle, right? But I'm not crowding the area where my dodger who caught the ball off the second pass is trying to get to. And this is the tough part to get across. So when that attackman gets through onto the backside pipe, he eyes the ball moves behind, he's eyeing the ball moves again, he's fading back to where he came from. Right? So we're really teaching that guy, you're a threat the whole time. Because what happens again is the defense starts to move, their heads turn, and all of a sudden, oh, wait, am I the slack guy now? They turn their head, and what the idea is that the attackman flash and rolls back to where he kind of came from is often wide open. So we teach them to, at the next level, look to and through the crease. Right? Because remember, we had this midi, move, this midi's popping slowly, so he might be open at 8 or 9 yards. So now I've created 8 or 9 yards and an underneath look. I kind of have two guys down low. I didn't change my offensive set. I didn't change the principles, except at the next level, this is what I do with my attack. Conversely, if I attack from behind, I'm still getting that cut, fade, and in, right? One in, one out, one over. I get that same look off my attack, and I can teach this guy to get through, right? If he comes there, and again, we're filling. So it's a midi attack nuance, and when you say, do you teach, this is where you got to be able to talk to both of them. But if you've got a youth program, this is really hard to get across, right? This concept of, I'm cutting through, but I'm not really, right? I'm like kind of coming back to, it changes the, I went here, I filled my spot. But it is the next level of this particular offense. And again, the open set, if you sit an open set, the letters don't change, right? Your principles might change, right? You might say, we're not going to do one in, out, one over, we're going to fade and follow. So if I'm dodging from E, I'm going to cut through and I'm going to fade, right? Or I'm dodging from here, I'm going to cut through and this guy fades this direction, hoping to get the adjacent slide and that dump. So there's a million nuances, and I'm not trying to overteach any one thing. I'm just trying to teach the idea that we like to start with spots. It helps the kids once they understand where to go, right? I have some basic rules. Somebody's an initiator, somebody's a reactor. It's the rest of the way, all the way through college, up here, or club ball. It's always that way. Right? I still play with old guys. There's certain guys that can initiate. There's other guys like you don't want him to go to the goal, right? Like he can catch and shoot, and he knows where to be because he's been playing for 40 years. But he is not the guy that you want to go to the goal, right? So just teaching the concepts north-south, initiation, reacting, east-west. This is it. I should have about 5 minutes left. Yes, sir.
So Paul, could you just show like a drill or two on how you emphasize what you're talking about?
So the biggest thing that I try to do is, I'll just start with 3 cones. And I might even start before that, right? Just to emphasize getting the ball around. Just a simple 4-cone drill. I'll put kids at each station, and the concept is, every time you throw the ball, I want to see a V cut out. This is reinforcing you got to step in and out for the ball, right? So the ball comes, I'll catch it, I'll roll to my outside shoulder, I'll throw it to the next guy who's doing the same thing, right? That is my first basic drill, right? Like, let's get the movement so I can get it out and over, right? And then I'll come up, eraser. Then I'll change it into smaller sets, and if I were doing station work thereafter, or if I wanted to start practice differently the next time once I understand the concepts, I've got 3 triangles, and I'll start with a set or a station inside the restraining line with the goal here, right? And I'll just say, I want you to dodge, right? Square your shoulders, I want to see a dodge, and a throw through, right? I might be this guy, or I might put an attackman here, and I just want to see him fade and look, and then move the ball, right? So as the ball comes here, I'll throw it up to the top, he'll throw it over, and each kid gets a chance to reinforce the movement. So I try to do different progressions of what they're going to do or what we want them to look for. And again, at the youth age, and then, on my eventual drill, as opposed to the original 4 stations, I'll put everybody in a spot, right? There'll all be a few kids at each spot. And I'll say, run a dog, right? And this kid's going to go in, this kid's going to go out, this kid's going to go over. I want the ball to go to this guy every time. And then I want the guy to shove for the ball, etc., and just move the ball. So I want them to get the feel of what we're teaching, right? Like, okay, so I've talked about it, I've done some basic drills, and then I start reinforcing the triangle movement, so eventually by the 3rd or 4th, 5th practice, I'm here, right? Where let's reinforce the movement, let's reinforce the ball movement and where we're going. So and I'll put a couple kids in each line, it's usually not 1 kid. So we'll do this movement in an effort to get them to understand, I just want you to square and go, right? If you're not passing or you're shooting in this drill, we're not going to shoot, we're just going to pass the ball to the next red guy. And this is particularly great as you progress to the last thing I showed, where I've got this guy coming and curling, I've got here and here, and then the ball moves up again. But in any progression of the triangle, I like to do this look, where I'll start with just 4, moving the ball around, which is reinforcing the V-cuts and showing to the ball, keeping the ball on my outside shoulder. I might change it up and say, I want you to catch it, square, right, and face dodge underneath, and then make the pass. So I can reinforce my footwork, I can reinforce my dodges, I can reinforce the pass and where it's supposed to go. And so if I do this over the course of the whole season, they get it. It takes them a while to get it, but they do get it. And then,
Hey Paul, are you running more skeleton with your youth today than you did 5 years ago? What about same? I mean, what you're doing here, where you're teaching your motion and your triangles, no D on the field, obviously, right?
Right.
It's just pass.
yeah.
Are you running more skeleton than you used to? I know I am.
No, because of time and practice,
Okay.
I'll show it, we'll demo it, we'll talk it through, we'll demo it, we'll have them run it without any D, and then we'll try and, the problem is at 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th, you always have the kid who's like, it's a drill, but no, it's not, right? So for the defender wants to come out and like kill the kid who's got the ball and can barely catch, so the drill is killed, right? So the concept is, I don't find as much help at the moment throwing the defense in against that. Once we're teaching our defensive principles of where we're sliding from what we want, I like to do the bucket drill or 6-on-5 drills, where I'll have one less, I'll roll the ball to the kid, and whoever I roll it to, that defender has to go touch the line, the nearest outside line or midfield line, and now it's 6-on-5, which is giving the kids a chance to go to the goal. I have to have a slide, right? So now this kid's gone, so the defender's gone, so I have to have a slide, I have to move the ball, I have to get it back up, I have to move it twice, dodge, pass again, dodge again, etc. Excuse me, pass, dodge again. So I'm trying to, in every drill that we do as we progress, particularly like 6th and 7th grade, I start to teach more and more as the season goes. So at Surge, Northside Youth Lacrosse, This season, I taught the walking helmets at kindergarten, which is not doing any of this really, right? I mean, it's 100 basics with 1,000,000 touches. And then the other thing we teach, I taught this was 8th grade. So I was teaching the youngest and the oldest. And my 8th graders were, you know, again, every practice started with a ton of fundamentals, as Jason was talking about, and eventually we get into playing. And by the end of the season, I at least had the concepts, and this was only an hour of practice followed by a game. We had the concepts of who's getting through, right? Get out of the way of the dodger, right? As you get older, getting out of the way of the dodger is key, which is why I don't, to the earlier point, teach a lot of picking early on. Not that it's not effective, but just getting to move to space. If you can move the ball a couple of times and move to space at this younger age, usually somebody's open. Teaching the kid to keep his head up and make that pass, that's the challenge. That's a bigger challenge than trying to teach a kid to pick and roll and make a 5-yard dump pass when they can barely catch and throw. At least at our level, rec level, right? Select, it's different. I get it. High school, it's different. Nothing else. Great. Yes, sir.
Just a lot of, most of this stuff depends on all the players keeping their eye on the ball, keeping their stick. You mentioned keep your stick right here.
Yep.
You know, how do you, what kind of technique do you use to coach the kids to keep, like this last play where the guy cuts the backside pipe and then as the ball moves around behind, he slowly rotates back towards his position. As you did it, you kept your eye right on the ball and you were moving your feet. But we know at the 6th, 7th.
Right, so depending on the group of kids that I have, like what age, and let's say it's 6th and 7th, I will show it, I'll demo it, I'll have the attackman do it, and I'll just run a drill literally from X, where I've got, you know, or run from on top where X, doesn't matter. But in this case, I'll run it from X, I'll have him fade and follow, and then I'll go ahead and pass it and make a pass. So it becomes a shooting drill where it's like, okay, I'm going to reinforce what I'm teaching. And for the moment, I'm going to teach this kid, right, who's my only lefty on the team, right, to cut through left-handed looking for the ball a certain way, to show his stick, and then fade back to the other side. And then I'll go ahead and throw him a pass. So like if he's not looking, it's going to hit him in the head. Right? Like, so I'll just throw it, like, you know, and I'm always teaching eyes up, eyes up, eyes up. See the dodger, right? So certain sayings we'll repeat all the time. Defensively, you know, switching subjects, I'll have a guy out here, and then the guy covering wants to come all the way out here with him. And there's nothing happening, the ball's just moving around, and my favorite, defensive saying is don't make him a dodger, right? Like if you're playing 40 yards from the cage, you just made who has the ball a dodger because you're so far away you can't help if you get beat. So conversely, eyes up, follow the ball, head up, see the dodger, cut through, clear through, see space. A lot of the same, nothing fancy that I'm saying, but reinforcing the areas, the movement, and that I'm always eyeing the ball, no matter what I'm on, what piece of the triangle I'm on, I gotta see what's happening. How do I catch the ball or see the ball, or see the opportunity if I'm just jogging my head down in the spot? Drives me nuts, but I try and reinforce it, right? And so you'll have certain kids that didn't take the purple pill that day, and then you'll keep telling them, Johnny, right? Eyes up, right? Right? So you'll show them and show them and show them and show them again, and eventually, and some of them don't, but that's rec ball.
Once they have their spots down and they have, you've got the movement reinforced, do you teach specifically the timing of those movements, or do they just get that over time with the drills and that works itself out?
When we first demo, we try to show the timing of the movement, which, to Jason's point earlier, they remember, no, almost not at all. So it has to be reinforced in the drills you start, and then when you go to reinforce, if you've got two coaches, one dad who doesn't know what he's doing really, and Serge, we're pretty lucky because most of the teams that we have all have at least one dad who's played. So it makes it a lot easier to teach when you can reinforce what you're trying to show, and then the other guy might say, hey, the dad who doesn't know can at least say, where's your head? You're not looking for the ball. Look for the ball, right? Slow fade, look for the ball. So the nuance of the timing of all that does need to be reinforced, and you have to keep reinforcing. And then they get when you start playing, they get the feel for it. They get the geez, I cut so fast, I cut into an area that, I vacated the crease so fast you couldn't throw the ball to me even if I was wide open. So it's a slow fade. So we teach the nuance. That's why when I first teach it, I teach it in parts. Because there's so much nuance, really, for each triangle and each kid within the triangle about the timing of getting to the fill, right? It's easier to teach to some degree if it's as pedantic as, I'm dodging and I'm throwing the ball to X if I don't have a shot, and or Bobby's not open, right? So, like, this pass can be wide open sometimes, and because it's right in front of them, they'll see it. This pass will be, because I hammered, like, who's the most open guy all the time if there's a slide in your face? It's the greasy guy, right? If they're sliding adjacent, we talk about adjacent's gonna be coming from the guy that left, right? So it's a lot of reinforcement. There's no easy, like, yeah, when practice we covered it and they know it. It's just like everything else you've just gotta keep repeating it and showing it and trying to work drills that reinforce both the movement and the nuance. The nuance comes after the movement, it really does. I mean, you say it, but there's no expectation of it, right? And then there's the common masses who they just, you know, they understand, right? So there's always gonna be that kid who's just, they get it. And you hope to be able to pair those up with kids. The greatest part for the teaching for me is to watch the kid we ranked as a 3 at the beginning of the season nuance his way into a 2, right? He's athletic, he gets it, he's moving to space. Doesn't always catch the ball, but when he catches it, you know, he's knowing to shoot, that kind of stuff. So that's the great part of the, you know, the experience where the light's coming on and they're getting it.
Hey, you made a good point before where you said, next time on Johnny. This way Johnny knows, next time he gets it, he's more spontaneous. He's going right to the goal rather than taking it, okay, Johnny, go. And he goes, okay, here I go.
Right.
So next time he catches it, he goes and makes his move. It's spontaneous.
It's just such a big deal because so many of the kids really want to, you know, they want to stay, oh, I'm the go guy. He called my delta dodge for the next time around. That's me, right? We really want to teach this kid to literally get up 15, 20 yards north of their restraining line so that this guy's pass as he's catching and moving towards him is a 10-yard pass, but as he catches it, he squares his shoulders and go. I don't have to say, run it, dog. Go ahead, right? And in high school, we know, right? We know once we move to spots and we've got our dodge where we want, we know we're going, right? And we know what everybody's doing and reacting to us. Again, I hate to use the word, you know, pedantic or square or too controlling, but you got to get them to understand who's the goer, who's clearing through space, and who's filling space. We're right on time then?
Well, we're still behind, but we're good. We're better.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob.